invite Professor Mulraj Sharma, Controller of Examination, Head Center for Educational Technology, to come on the dais and introduce our speaker, keynote speaker number 3. Thank you.
Thank you, Aruna. Respected dignitaries, participants, I feel delighted to introduce Professor Shironika, who is the speaker of the keynote address on digital education leadership for opening up educational practices. Professor Shironika Priyanthi Karunanaike is a senior professor in educational technology at the Open University of Sri Lanka. She has served as the Dean of Faculty of Education at Open University of Sri Lanka. Before joining Open University, she has gained experience as a trained teacher of science, serving in secondary school system in Sri Lanka for over a decade. She served as an honorary advisor to the Commonwealth of Learning Canada during 2019-21. From April 2023, she was appointed as an honorary chair of the Commonwealth of Learning. Being an active researcher, Professor Karunanaike has published widely in national and international forums, including 3 edited books, several book chapters, many refereed journal articles, and over 100 conference papers. Her key research focus is in information and communication technologies in education, learning experience design, open educational resources, that is OER, and open educational practices, that is OEP. So we are thankful to her for accepting our invitation to be one of the speakers at this conference. And I formally welcome Professor Shironika and invite her now to deliberate on the topic digital education leadership for opening up educational practices. So Professor Shironika, please.
Thank you very much for that very kind introduction. And I'm very happy to be virtually participating in this great event, the International Conference on Open and Digital Learning, organized by the MIER College of Education, Jammu, India. And I thank Professor Adit Gupta for inviting me today to deliver a keynote. So let me share the screen. Okay, so I'm going to share a few thoughts with you today on digital education leadership for opening up educational practices. I have organized my presentation in this manner, how digital transformation is affecting teaching and learning and how it supports enhancing open educational practices. And mainly, what is our role as educators to function as change agents and digital education leaders in action to promote digital education practices and open education practices. So, as we all have been discussing since morning today, the digital revolution is significantly affecting our lives in many ways, including teaching and learning. So we are surrounded with all these digital resources, digital tools, digital books, and digital networks, and so on, but which all contributes to transform education. At the same time, the digital transformation raises certain issues, such as digital safety, and maintaining a positive digital identity, which shows us the need for digital literacy. So digital education plays a key role in ensuring responsible use of digital technologies and developing digital citizenship. So as all previous speakers have been highlighting, emerging technologies and practices in education, such as the artificial intelligences, virtual reality, micro-credentials, and high-flex learning, they are all blurring the boundaries between learning modalities. I'm not going to elaborate on these things because this has been referred to in all the previous speeches. So we are all aware of these emerging technologies and practices. This transition to digital practices enhances not only educational opportunities in terms of improved accessibility, flexibility, efficiency, and innovation in teaching and learning. At the same time, promoting digital education practices facilitates meeting 21st century expectations. As we all know, the digital education practices, the digital literacy significantly effects on improving the 21st century learning skills, mainly critical thinking, creative thinking, and communication, and especially collaborative teaching and learning. However, when we integrate technology, these digital technologies into our teaching learning processes, we also have to consider whether they are appropriate, whether they are appropriate to our context, to our needs, to our teaching learning, teachers and learners, the existing context, because we are facing so many challenges, as some of you already mentioned. And is it equitable? Is it scalable? And is it sustainable, as highlighted by the recently launched report on technology in education by UNESCO? Now, as we all know, when we integrate digital technologies and enhancing digital education practices, they also enable opening up educational practices, which also contributes to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, especially SDG 4, that is quality education, ensuring inclusive and quality education for all and promoting lifelong learning. Now, my main focus is on how digital education practices can lead to enhanced open educational practices. Now, opening up educational practices or enhancing openness in education, there are various dimensions and various notions. It's not only open educational resources, which has been referred to before, and enhancing open access, but also the practices, which is very important, how we use or how we change our practices to move towards more and more openness, which includes open pedagogies, open technologies, open sciences. There are so many dimensions. But at the same time, as Professor Somnaidu mentioned in his keynote address, all these are based on this value principle of considering education as a common good. So that's why we are all collectively thinking about education as a common good and trying to inculcate these changes or support this transition towards making our thinking and practices more and more towards openness. Now, there are, as research informs, there are so many strategies that have been identified and proven ways of promoting open practices in educational context. These are a few examples. For example, in some initiatives that I'm going to share with you in a while, we use this learning engine framework where we start with our commitments to our learners and focusing on the learning outcomes and moving away from this content-centric learning to more context-centric learning and focused on real-life situations and designing authentic learning experiences. And this shows us how to support educators to become more and more open, or to become open educators who will engage in open educational practices by implementing open learning designs and not only using open educational content, but also creating open educational content and sharing, and also engaging in co-creation of knowledge together through collaborative and cooperative practices. So this brings us to this, to reflect on ourselves. We are all educators from various educational institutions, but we are all educators. So what is our role in making this happen? So I believe our role is to function as change agents, because as educators, we have a great responsibility to take up the leadership, to advocate change, to catalyze, to promote, and facilitate this transition towards open education practices and digital education practices in our own educational institutions. So let me share with you some experiences from my own context at the Open Institute of Sri Lanka, where we have initiated and implemented certain initiatives to promote and support transformational change in relation to open educational practices. So I'm not going to go into details of all these initiatives, but I will just mention them and highlight the key points which are coming out through all these experiences we started since 2012, a decade ago. But the common thing is all these are capacity development interventions, because I believe, and I think we all as educators believe, capacity building is crucial, especially among teachers, to support their students, and us as educators to teach educators to support teachers. So all these interventions were basically capacity development interventions to enhance shifting mindsets of practitioners, to change their practices towards open educational practices. So my presentation is basically sharing these experiences, the practical experiences of implementing all those principles and models, which many of the previous speakers have been mentioning. So I think if you link those with the practical experiences I'm sharing here, I think that's a very good. There's a very good link between those presentations and what I'm sharing now. So to be very brief, to give a very brief summary of these interventions, we started in 2012 when the OER concept was very new for all of us. But when we saw the advantage or the benefit of it, we started with a small intervention of introducing it to our student teachers, a small group, how to search and find and integrate OER for science education for their classroom practices. And when they couldn't find them, because majority of them are in English language, as we all know, we encourage them to create OER in our own local languages and adapt and use them, share them. So that was a starting point. After that, we moved forward because we realized that all of us need to develop our capacity. So with support from various institutions like Commonwealth of Learning and SEMCA, we implemented several other projects. We started with developing capacity among all staff members in our faculty, because we realized as we are all teacher educators at the Faculty of Education. So first we need to develop our capacity to support our student teachers. So this first project on integration of ICT and OER into teacher education programs, where we developed our capacity of how to design and develop online courses, blended online courses with the integration of open education resources, and then implement it with our student teachers. that is at the Faculty of Education. So afterwards, we thought we should share these practices with the remaining rest of the faculties of the OUSL, and we adapted and already developed OER-based e-learning course at SEMCA, actually at the Wawasan Open University, Malaysia. We adapted that, and it was introduced to other staff in the other faculties, so that expanding from our faculty to other faculties. Then we moved out of the university to the school system with the support of another project, and with the Ministry of Education support, we implemented in a large scale to school teachers in all over the country, all over Sri Lanka, in all our 9 provinces, developing capacity of school teachers to integrate open educational resources, again, not only searching and finding, but also promoting them to create and share the open resources, digital resources, and integrate them into their teaching learning processes. Then the next initiative, we moved out of Sri Lanka to create MOOCs. We, with the SEMCA support, we created what we call CPD MOOCs, Continuing Professional Development MOOCs, to promote the adoption of open educational resources and open education practices among educators. And most recently, we focused mainly on developing digital education practices among school teachers, again, through the C-Delta project of the Commonwealth of Learning, which I will briefly elaborate in a little while. So all these interventions, what I wanted to show you throughout this decade of practical experiences of doing various capacity development interventions, we were trying to enact changes in thinking and practices among practitioners at different levels, at school level, at university level, and at various other institutions also, through integrating digital technologies and open educational resources into their educational practice, and promote OER-based e-learning mainly through developing capacity. Now, the existing policies of the university also supported us to implement these initiatives, but we did not have an OER policy at that time. So these initiatives made us realize the need for an OER policy. So it actually, these initiatives contributed to development of an OER policy at the Open Institute of Sri Lanka as the first institution in Sri Lanka to adopt an OER policy. So I think that's another significant thing that has happened through these interventions. And we all, the other important thing is all these adopted a design-based approach. So I will come into that because as highlighted by Professor Naidu's keynote, and I should mention all these initiatives were very active teamwork, and Professor Naidu has been a facilitator in most of the interventions I mentioned. So our main focus was on this designing meaningful learning experiences for these participants of these interventions, and not only raising awareness and building capacity, we encouraged all these participants, that is not only the participants of the interventions, but the researchers as well. We were also collaboratively working with them together and sharing our experiences throughout the process, and which resulted in empowering ourselves, including us, the participants, the teachers, and the learners. So that's how we attempted this enacting change from open educational resources to open educational practices through the integration of digital technologies as well. So as I mentioned, the design-based research approach we used, that was very useful to go through this process. because it's a very active process of in the real life situation where we continuously analyzed current thinking and practices, and then designing the learning experiences to suit the needs and to enhance the adoption of open education practices, and through different cycles of capacity development. Now, each of these intervention I may consider as a cycle, because each the outcomes of each fed to the improvement and the development of the successive interventions, and throughout this process, continuous collection of data. So this took a research-based approach, and I should mention based on sound theoretical framework, learning-centered and based on situated learning principles with what President mentioned, like first principles of education, and models like TPAC, technology, integrating technology, pedagogy, and content together. So all these provided us with very useful guidelines on how to design these meaningful experiences. And through our data collection, we saw where we can improve further. So these capacity development cycles, finally, through our reflections together with the practitioners, the researchers reflected to enhance our solutions, which are the learning designs, the design learning experiences, and we shared our experiences with everybody through reflective stories. Not only we have a lot of research publications, but in addition to the research publications, we wanted to share them as stories, which are a very powerful way of uh, showing how there were a lot of challenges. Of course, you understand, in our context, we face a lot of challenges when implementing these issues. So we thought it's good to focus on how we face the challenges and how we manage to overcome the challenges and move through this process. So we openly published our experiences in two ways. One as digital books published with Creative Commons licenses, and also as weblogs. So these are openly accessible by everybody. So when I share the slides, all these are linked. If you are interested, you can go through these and see how we have gone through these experiences, and try to create these leaders or change agents, us becoming change agents, and trying to make our participants also change agents, so that they will implement those practices in their own context, in their universities or in their schools. So if I just quickly share how about the most recent experience with the school teachers. So, introducing the C Delta program, or the Commonwealth Digital Education Leadership Training in Action program, the school teachers. And through the school teachers, we wanted them to take the leadership. First, we developed the capacity of the school teachers, and then ask them to take the leadership and implement this in their schools, so that they become change agents as well. So this initiative was mainly based on this conceptual framework, where our main aim was developing digital literacy. Because when I started the presentation, I mentioned the importance of digital literacy in this digital era. So how to develop digital literacy through digital education, which is the pedagogic intervention that the process, what happened during these interventions, and which needed the leadership, digital education leadership at different levels. We provided leadership to the school teachers, the school teachers provided leadership to the children, and there were a lot of things happening during these interventions, which were very touching moments were there, and they enjoyed as well, because they went through this process of raising awareness, having access, developing skills, and changing thinking and practices, and becoming digital education leaders. So this shows how they enjoyed and how they developed their competencies, not only knowledge but skills, as well as mainly attitude building. So again, we have openly shared all these experiences through their stories, because we believe these stories are a very powerful way of sharing experiences, so that any others can uh, take examples and adopt in their own context as well. So again, we have this time we opened everything digitally, because we had 3 phases. All phases we have shared in a website called Digital Education Leaders in Action, and through some video narrations as well. So again, when I share, you can go through these resources and see how our how we, I mean, as the researchers, as well as our participants, the school teachers, went through these experiences of becoming digital education leaders in action. So my point is, what I want to highlight is how we can take the leadership, or how we can play the role of change agents to facilitate this transition towards open practices and digital practices in education, which essentially need capacity development among both teachers and learners. And us as well. We need capacity development among ourselves as well to develop digital. The main focus is to develop digital literacy through digital education by enhancing digital education leadership skills and promoting open, participatory, and collaborative practices. So all these have taken a very strategic approach to instill a change. So I think based on the request, I have tried to put everything within a short period of time. But of course, I can answer any questions. I would like to conclude my presentation with this quote of Michael Fullan: change really isn't as hard as we thought if we can capture people's interest and give them enjoyable, worthwhile experiences. So once again, I appreciate for giving me this opportunity to share some thoughts with you today. And I wish you all the best with your conference and all your future innovative endeavors. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Now we would like to ask you some questions.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we would like to ask you some questions. So,
Yes.
Ma'am, I have a
Before
question.
that, there is a surprise for you.
Sorry.
Veronica, how are you?
Hello. Hello,
Yes.
President Ramesh. Very happy to see you.
Yes. I requested them that before the question, let there be a surprise attack.
Sorry, it was not clear to me. Were you asking a question? Or
No question, only surprise for you.
okay. Well, I have been listening to your keynote as well.
Now it is surprise
Yes.
for me. Bye, take care.
Yeah. Thank you. Very nice to see you too.
ma'am, we have two queries from our audience. First question is, how can digital education leaders promote a mindset of lifelong learning?
Sorry, Can you repeat again? It's not very clear for me. The sound is not clear.
How can digital education leaders promote a mindset of lifelong learning?
Okay, yes. Okay, so how can digital education practices, is that what you're referring to promote changing mindsets for lifelong learning? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Okay. So I think as I was I was a bit quick because of the time constraints, so I could not elaborate all the initiatives. Now, all these things happened at the Open Institute of Sri Lanka, as you know, is the only open university in Sri Lanka. So all our learners there we consider as lifelong learners because they are at different age groups and different positions and so on. So anyway, to answering your question, okay, so lifelong, as we all know, lifelong learning is, we are all learning from, at any time, from anywhere, at any age. Now we consider now throughout this process, as I mentioned, we were not like taking a top-down approach of like teaching our student teachers, but there was the environment was through the digital tools, the environment, the blended learning courses that we developed, the design courses were like a very collaborative platform where everybody was working as co-learners, co-learners. So everybody was learning from each other about different aspects. So I think these digital tools, and especially these very advanced digital technologies which are being talked today, sometimes we are unable to use them due to our various challenges, but they all, if we design properly, you can promote lifelong learning because you can address the different needs of different individuals at their different contexts or at their different learning styles or their learning needs at different age limits or context wise. So it all depends on how you design the learning experience to make it effective and engaging and how to what extent you support them and facilitate them to address their needs. I think I hope that answered what your question.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. Ma'am, we have another question. How does effective digital education leadership contribute to building a supportive community?
How it contributes to?
How does effective digital education leadership contribute to building a supportive community?
Contribute to building the final part?
Supportive community, ma'am. Community.
Sorry? Supportive community. Is it?
Yes, ma'am. Supportive
Okay,
community.
community building. Okay, yes. I think community building is the learning community building. When I mentioned all these things that we were learning together, these communities of practice, the learning community building happen. So when you go through our, I hope at least some of you will, I will share my PowerPoint slides with Professor Adit Gupta, and he can share it with the participants. So when you go through our stories, you will see how when engaging interactively in these interventions, how it led to development of learning communities where we all had the same goal and we were all collaboratively and cooperatively interacting with each other towards the same goal, right? So that's how it developed these learning communities. And mainly through these social interactions. So when you design the learning experience in such a way, not just delivering or transmitting knowledge, but allowing everybody to learn from each other. There were a lot of activities where we encourage everybody to, peer feedback and giving constructive comments to each other and collective decision making. So all those things can happen if you design the learning experience properly so that everybody achieves the goal as a learning community.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Excuse me, ma'am, I would like to ask a question.
Yeah.
Good afternoon and thank you, ma'am. It was really nice to hear your keynote. I just wanted to ask, ma'am, in last 20 years, we find that traditional learning system or the classroom learning system was given much more importance as compared to the open learning system. So, ma'am, I would like to ask you that what do you think or what are your views that the students, those who are learning in open platform and digital platform, the quality of their knowledge or the quality of the knowledge they're attaining, are they is it okay enough for them to be future educators, or are they getting appropriate quality as compared to the quality that is being provided in classroom teaching?
Yes. Now, yeah, I think that's that's a question. We all face this situation, especially maybe in our context, this traditional classroom situation versus the digital platforms. I think that's what you are trying to ask me. Yes, that is a challenge. That's a challenge we all face because teachers, well, this change. Now, I was talking about this change. Now, changing practices. It's a little bit complex. It takes time. You need to have a strategic approach to change these practices. Now you're asking about the quality of the learning experiences student gain. So I'm not sure whether uh, you're thinking about the quality between the traditional face-to-face teaching approaches and the online learning platforms. Is that what you're
Yes, ma'am.
asking? Okay, well, okay. There's two ways. Now we know that we need maybe at the initial stages we need these physical transactions, the interactions, the physical interactions, the social interactions. So maybe there's this criticism in online platforms that you don't get that human interaction because you're interacting with the machine. So there's something there, but there are ways of making the computer also more interactive because there are so many ways of making the social interactions possible in the online platforms as well. But I think, I mean, my personal belief is fully online, going fully online, depending on fully online is in our context, when considering maybe India, Sri Lanka, we have the same sort of challenges, and talking about the equity and whether everybody has the accessibility. I think best way to go to a blended approach. The blended approach where we can, support our learners through the digital technologies, to the affordances of the digital technologies, but at the same time maintaining the human interaction because they need a lot of human support. Not only the students, I know because I work with teachers for 30 years now, the teachers also need a lot of, this face-to-face human interaction, that sort of support to make them develop their capacity, or to make them feel that support is there, that through totally online platform it is a little bit difficult. My belief is the blended approach would be the best to maintain the balance.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Shironika, for this wonderful session. It was indeed an eye-opening session regarding the OER practices and policies, and the 10 open principles that you gave were really, really interesting. I hope that we'll connect in future as well, and take guidance from you in this regard. And we thank you again for sparing your valuable time and connecting with us today. It was a pleasure listening to you.